Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Bon Voyage Besties. Today, it's just me and my favorite co-host, Rosa, and we're going to talk about a topic that I think everybody in existence knows very, very well, and that is how to actually get your friend's trip out of the group chat. Because we know the group chat is a place where potential trips go to die, basically, and sometimes it's really hard to get the ball rolling and to turn these group trips into reality, especially when you have a ton of busy schedules going on, conflicting dates, yada, yada, yada. So we're breaking down why group trips stall and exactly how to move from talking about it to actually booking it. So if you've been dreaming of a besties getaway or even just one weekend away, it doesn't have to be this like huge international trip, then stay tuned because this episode is 100% for you. Rosa, I'm so excited about this one because I feel like it is such a common complaint.
I know. I love seeing like all the videos on social media where it's like the trip finally made it out the group chat and it's just like legit one person at the airport.
Yeah, right. And I actually saw another video right before we recorded this on TikTok where the person was like, I can't even organize a trip to McDonald's with my friends, let alone go out of the country. And I feel like it's so true, especially as you get older, people get married, have kids, or move across the country. It is really hard to link up and plan these trips.
But yeah, I totally agree. And I think that's probably one of the biggest reasons why the trip lives in the chat and never actually happens. And I think it's because of that. I mean, we all know planning a trip, it's a lot of work. And if you don't have one person within that group that's going to kind of take charge, then it makes it a little bit harder for everyone to like you said, just kind of figure out like when can we go? Where are we going to go? What are we going to do? All the logistics part of everything. So I think having that one outspoken friend in the group is definitely beneficial when it comes to travel planning.
Yeah, definitely. And I totally think I'm that friend. Like when I've booked French trips, I'm immediately like, let's go here. And I'll just like book the ticket because I know having traveled solo a lot, I'll just go anyway. So I'll book the ticket and my friends will be like, wait, you booked that? And I'll be like, yes, I did.
I know. I am that friend. You text me once like, hey, do you want to go to Florida? Like, I'm ready, like booking my PTO days. I'm booking my flight. I am ready to book that hotel. Like, you tell me, I'm ready to go. So I am that friend that's always down for an adventure. So like, you can't joke around and ask me to go somewhere because I will definitely go.
My God, how many times have we done that in our lives? Like, I still have some PTO days ready to burn.
Well, mine's just restarted. So
There we
I'm
go.
ready. Tell me where and we'll go.
There we go. Probably one of the only good things about January if you're in corporate, right, folks? Like it's the month that never ends and it's long and it's cold. So it's the perfect time to like plan that French trip and to get it out of the chat. But yeah, definitely. I do feel like your group needs that one outspoken friend because if a lot of people are indecisive or kind of wishy-washy, I know on occasion sometimes even just deciding where to go to dinner, if you're with people who just can't make a decision about a restaurant, like people think they're being agreeable, but when it comes to actually making something happen, it's not always the best.
Yeah. And I know it's hard too, especially when you have like a large group of friends. So like I know my cousin this year, she's actually planning her 50th birthday. And initially last year when we were hanging out, she was like, oh, I want to do like a cruise. And at first she's like, all right, we're going to thinking of going in the month of April. So I was like, perfect. Let me know the dates and I'll see if I can swing the trip. And then just kind of getting everyone else involved and like my family, they're pretty big. So when people started just kind of figuring out logistics, when they can go, and now the trip went from early April to like mid-May. And now it's to the point that I'm like, well, now I don't know if I can make it to the trip. So I know logistically it sounds great and everybody's always down for it. But when you start figuring out dates, prices, location, people start to kind of like flake off.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think this is dependent on the size of the group as well. Like I know with an upcoming trip that I'm taking to London, I'm seeing 3 friends there. Now it is a little bit different because we're all kind of doing our own thing. I just happen to be meeting them there. But for my trip to Crete in the summer, again, there was 4 of us. It was kind of easier to manage, come up with an itinerary because 4 people committing, that's very different than trying to like put together a group of 10 people because then like you have people with varying budgets, like their time off. So for example, with my job, if somebody's like, oh, hey, we're going to do this amazing trip and we're taking 2 weeks in February, well, I can't do that because my schedule doesn't allow for it. So the more people, the more problems. So maybe if you're actually hoping to get that trip out of the group chat, it would be amazing to go somewhere with absolutely everyone, but you also have to kind of be realistic and not let it hold you back if one person can't go. Because I feel like if you get caught up in the logistics of every single person, that, will make it really impossible.
Exactly. And we're all adults here. So obviously, if you can't make the trip, then it's fine. You shouldn't have to feel guilty that, okay, you and a few other friends can actually make the trip happen. I know a few years back when travel from the US became a little bit more accessible to go to Cuba, it was myself and maybe like 6 or 7 other friends that were like, yes, we want to go. So we had a chat going on. And like, same thing, once we narrowed down the dates, one person was like, nope, those dates don't work for me. And next thing you know, we went from like a group of 7, 8 to literally it was just myself and my friend Michelle who ended up going because we're like, well, we really want to go and make this happen. And everyone else that wasn't able to make it, they couldn't go. And then later on, it's funny because a couple of them ended up going like separately during different times that year. But unfortunately, our time just did not coincide on when we were able to go, which was totally fine. So I think, like you said, just kind of being aware that if not everyone in the trip can make it, now granted, if this is a destination that maybe you and your friends already had agreed that you want to go together, then kind of be a little bit more flexible in that aspect. But other than that, if only 1 or 2 of the group can go, then just still make it happen.
Yeah, definitely. And I really like what you said about us all being adults. I know that I can't make every single trip that my friends can go on just because of logistics and sometimes price. Of course, if it's a destination, like a bucket list destination that a bunch of us really, really want to go to, in that case, it like pays to be a little patient, maybe wait a bit. But if it's a destination where, let's be honest, some of the members of the group are kind of like, oh, whatever, I don't necessarily have to go here, then it's totally okay to just have a few of you go or travel solo. Because I know you said before on other episodes, Rosa, that there are some destinations with your family, for example, that you can travel to and they won't mind so much. But then there's others, like our favorite Japan, where if you went without them, it would be a problem.
Yeah, they'll disown me. Like, if I step foot outside this house and take myself to Japan, like, I'm not coming back home.
Oh my God. Don't
But they'll lock me
even.
out. I'll stay in
Don't,
Japan.
Oh my gosh, don't even get me started on that. That is like the dream. So talking about like planning these French trips and getting them out of the group chat, how do you think it differs like in your 20s versus your 30s versus your 40s with making these trips a reality? Because I do think as people get older, more roadblocks come up. Like when you're young and in your 20s, I'm generalizing here, but you have fewer responsibilities. Sometimes it's easier. Whereas when you get older, you may have a family of your own, you may be married. So in what other ways does that differ, do you think?
Well, I think my personal situation is complete opposite. So I had my daughter Sam when I was 20 years old. So at this point, a lot of my friends, they were like going like on vacation to like Mexico, to like the Bahamas, all these places. But I personally couldn't go, right? I had a newborn, I had responsibilities, I was working, going to school. So I just had a lot going on in my personal life. So I was that friend that I was not able to make it out of these trips versus now that I'm a little bit older and Sam's like in college, I have a little bit more freedom than my friends that are in their 40s and they'd have toddlers. So I have a little bit more flexibility with my personal trips. So I think for me, it's a little bit different, but I think I would say, like you said, when you're young in your 20s, again, you might not have a lot of responsibility, but also that means you might not have a lot of money. So you might have some constraints when it comes to actually financially being able to afford the trip. So that could be a reason why it kind of falls through a little bit.
Yeah, that's really true. And it actually is kind of a similar situation for me. So, when I was in my 20s and just got my master's, I really wanted to travel. I was reading all these travel blogs. This was before Instagram. I would be watching YouTube videos about travel and I wanted to go absolutely everywhere. But it was like a difficult time with the economy. None of my friends could really find stable jobs, myself included. I was just subbing, but luckily I was living at home at the time. I didn't have to worry about paying for an apartment. And I wanted to use that money towards travel, but my friends had different priorities for what they wanted to do with their money, and that was totally fine. But then I just ended up traveling solo, and it was amazing. And I feel like I've made even more friends who love to travel. And a lot of the friends I go with now are people who I've met on solo trips. So, in some ways, to get that like trip out of the group chat, it's also good to have friends who are passionate about travel too and really want to do that because everyone's different. Like if you have a group of friends who maybe have different hobbies that also cost money. They have to think about what they want to do with their funds. So if travel is something that you love, like trying to connect with other travelers is a way to build that friend group because, other travelers, they'll always say yes. Like literally, if I had more time and more money, I would say yes to every single trip. I would be out of here like once a month, maybe twice a month. I don't know. I would be living at
It's
the Newark airport.
It's like, "Goodbye," you just take my credit card, just swipe away. It's funny because I actually posted, been this destination that I've been wanting to go for a while, and I posted something on my stories, and when I tell you, I had 4 of my friends, they're like, "Let's do it," and I'm like, "Say less because I will start planning." I will start planning this trip, but I think you bring up a good point. It's having friends that share those common interests, and even if they're not within, like, your immediate circle, maybe this is a friend or maybe let's say, like, a coworker or, like, a family member, anyone, even if you guys don't hang out on a regular basis, but you have a common interest, this could be a good opportunity to maybe explore the opportunity of traveling together. I know we also kinda talked about traveling with, like, high maintenance friends and kind of being surprised, so just also be careful who you're traveling with. Don't just be too spontaneous.
Oh my gosh, I always think of my one good friend who I travel with all the time. Now, the first trip that we did together to Italy, I knew her maybe 2 months. And I was talking about the trip to Italy at brunch. And I'm like, yeah, it's a solo trip. If anyone wants to go, feel free. And she texted me and was like, I know I don't really know you, but is it okay if I join you on this trip? And that trip it was amazing, but also kind of a hot mess with different things that happened. And we still travel together constantly to this day. So by saying yes, I found a really good travel buddy. But your own mileage may vary, right? Like it really worked out for me, but so you could have a really like awesome travel buddy when you've known each other for 2 months, and maybe like the friend you've known for like 10 years isn't as awesome as you think they're going to be. Because I know we talked about this on the high maintenance friends too, that somebody could be very different at home than they would be like overseas on vacation. Maybe things are going wrong. So you never know. Like feel free to say yes to people you don't know all that well. But if it goes wrong, don't DM me and complain about it.
Disclaimer, don't hold us responsible. But you brought
No.
a good point too, like also too, like with age. So like people like in their 30s, they might be a little bit more career minded and career focused. So their goals are gonna be a little bit different. So if that's the case and you can't find someone to go with, like you said before, just go alone. And that's one of the situations that I kind of find myself in now is that I do have a little bit more flexibility because again, I don't have like any like younger kids. Like granted, I still have like a job and other responsibilities, but I do have some more flexibility when it comes to traveling. And if someone can go with me, like I have no problem now going by myself. And I think it's a great way to just kind of get out there. And you don't have to go solo because there's a lot of great like group trips too that you can join. So if you don't necessarily want to travel somewhere by yourself, you can still do like a group trip and not feel guilty that your friends aren't able to join you. There's always a next one.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, be sure to check out some of our episodes with Melissa, in particular, episode 3 about moving abroad in your 40s. She has a travel company where women travel together and she organizes the group tours. So they have like built in friends, which is really, really awesome. And I know for me, like, I've done trips, like group trips. Like, when I was younger, I did Haggis Adventures through Scotland. It was great. It was a lot of young people. I've done trips with G Adventures, which is another really cool tour company. I know that Intrepid is another one that people rave about. And with G Adventures and Intrepid in particular, they're small group trips and you always get other people traveling solo. So then you have this built in group of friends, and maybe like you'll find people who you can travel with in the future. Like I know Melissa was saying in one of her episodes, I forget which one, but the women on her trip like connected so well that they would plan trips together later on. And that's always just so cool to see. So again, like you might like meet your travel friends elsewhere. Like sometimes the friends that you made in college or make in the workplace, like you never know, it may just not be for them. And that's like okay. Like you could always find a new group of friends and go traveling with them. Like there's no shame or shade with that.
Exactly. And I feel like too, there's a lot of different like trips out there. So even if you don't want to do like a larger company, I know like on social media, there's a couple of people that I follow that they host like more like intimate group trips. So maybe there's like a content creator or someone that you follow on socials that you really kind of feel like you would vibe with. And they might be hosting like a trip, then maybe that's something you also wanted to like, kind of inquire. and see if it's worth your while. But I know one of the biggest things, at least for myself, like I am like very type A, even though I'm trying to be a little bit more lax when it comes to my planning. But when you have those friends that are too easygoing, I feel like that's kind of like a recipe for disaster because you don't have someone making decisions, figuring things out. So I think that can kind of be not a positive thing to just kind of go with the flow all the time. You want someone that can actually make decisions. And like I said at the very beginning, at least someone like obviously not making all the decisions for the group, but at least kind of leading those conversations. And I feel like when you don't have that person in the group, then more often than not, the trip is not going to happen. But what would you say are some other mistakes that people make when planning or suggesting to go on a group trip?
So I think that there's a couple things that can go wrong. Like, I think we've all had those moments where we're with friends and we talk about all the amazing things we want to do. Like, oh, we should go here. Or even where it's like, oh, we should go to this restaurant. We should like meet up and do this all the time. And you know, like deep in your heart, is it probably going to happen? No. Like, I think we've all had those moments. But when it comes to pitching a serious trip, I think one mistake that people make is say if you have varying budgets, right? Like, so if you have a group of friends, maybe some of them are struggling financially or have other responsibilities, maybe try not to pitch a trip to Antarctica. I mean, like, you have to keep
It's
it
like just going like off the walls here.
like keep it somewhat
Spend all
reasonable.
your
Don't,
money.
don't be like, hey, you should like do this $30,000 cruise with me. I mean, like, be somewhat reasonable and aware. And the other thing too is maybe like don't be too rigid or too demanding. Like, that's always like a bad thing. And like, you know, accept a graceful no if people aren't interested. But I do think that's a big one. Maybe not taking into account like other people's budgets, and you plan this like lavish like trip and you want everyone to go to with you. Maybe people will humor you, but it's just like not in the cards right now. So I definitely think that's one mistake. And I think another mistake people make is being too like type B about it, in the sense that they'll maybe say, oh, we should go to Italy, but they never give specifics, right? They never say like June would be a really great month to go. Does anyone have any availability in June? Or maybe like be specific with cities. If you're thinking like a city tour, like, hey, like I have a really great idea for a trip to Rome. I'll be specific about that and not just say maybe Italy as a whole, because maybe some of your friends are thinking like, oh, like, do they want to go to the beach? Like, where do they want to go? I'm not sure if I want to do that. And then as always, like, considering people's time, because that's just as valuable as money. Like, are you planning a weekend getaway? And that might be a little easier to get out of the group chat. Or are you planning a 3-week tour around New Zealand? I mean, those are two very, very, very different asks.
And I think you brought up a good point too. And it kind of goes a little bit both ways. So, like, even if you are, let's say, that friend, maybe you're saving for something else and you want to take this trip, but the budget or where the location that everyone is talking about, it's outside of your comfort zone or your budget, it's okay. Like, you're friends. So, like, maybe suggest, be like, listen, I really want to make this trip, but I can't do that. Anybody's open to maybe looking at these other destinations, or maybe we can travel during off peak times where it could be a little bit more budget friendly or more affordable if we can kind of swing it. So, if you do have specific constraints, don't be afraid to vocalize that. Now, granted, maybe everyone in the group might not be able to either switch location or switch dates, but at least you don't feel left out and you don't feel like you really didn't have a say so. So at least be a little bit more upfront and honest with whether or not you can actually go on this trip and you can actually afford it. Because I think that's a big thing too. People go in saying like, oh, yes, 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 I'm down for the trip. And when you start looking at the logistics, you realize that maybe this isn't something you can swing after all.
Yeah, definitely. Don't be like me, folks, and say yes, and then you get the credit card bill afterwards and you're wondering where all your money went. Like, I don't necessarily recommend that. I mean, it's always worth it for me. The pictures are beautiful and I love the experiences, but, you know, you want to be a little careful there. But it's really true. Like, something that we did for our French trip to Crete, and I think it was one of the reasons we were able to plan this trip, is we asked the other two people, what budget do you have for hotels? And then me and the one other friend, we had some time where we were both available. We sat down, we went on booking.com, we talked about it, we sent each other links, and then we ended up discussing and picking hotels. Now, luckily, the other two people in the group, we knew them well enough that we kind of knew everybody's taste. So that made it really a lot easier to pick accommodation. But just like having that budget ahead of time really worked. So if you have a friend group that's really not afraid to talk about money, like it's much easier to get that trip out of the group chat. Where if you have a friends group that's like cagey with money, they may be feeling uncomfortable talking about numbers. It can be more difficult because, again, you could run into a situation where you're planning this trip and then it turns out to just be like insanely expensive. But the other thing to keep in mind with this is some education might be required here because if you have friends who don't travel frequently, they may not realize that, say, a trip to Italy or a trip to Portugal may actually be less than a trip around the United States if that's where you live, because the plane ticket really is the big budget items, but sometimes like hotels and meals, especially if you're staying in quieter places, it may not be nearly as expensive. Like my parents, they just went to Disney World. I guarantee that's going to cost more than my trip to, say, Italy, because and it's just one of those things people don't think of. Sometimes I think people assume, oh, domestic, it's going to be cheaper, but that's not always the case. I mean, New York City, hello.
So yeah, that's also a really good point too, because I remember when we went to Thailand and I was looking at the flights and I was like, oh my goodness. And it was going to be the three of us going. So I'm like, multiply this by three. It was going to be like ridiculously expensive. But then, like you said, when I started looking at like costs for like hotels and just kind of getting feedback as far as like food and things like that, I realized that it was going to be so much cheaper once we actually got there. So, the ticket price, don't let that scare you because sometimes, like you said, once you get to the destination, things can tend to be a little bit more affordable. So, now would you say when you're planning trips with your friends, do you pick the destination first or the dates first?
So with me, it's kind of like a non-answer because working in education, like I'm off in the summer months and that's just the reality of my situation. So people know going in traveling with me, it's probably going to be in the summer, or if we're doing spring break, maybe over Easter week, we can swing that. So normally they kind of know the dates up front, but we usually like take a consensus about the destination. We'll have a destination in our head. Like I know with this trip to Crete, the previous year, me and like two of the friends I went with, we were just talking at a cafe and one of my friends went, you know what? Next summer, Greece. And that's just what we stuck with. Like it was very easy, very simple. It was like a decision was made. And then when we were in Greece, he did the same thing. He's like, you know what? Summertime equals the Mediterranean. Let's do Italy. And I'm like, okay, so it's nice because I'll go anywhere and there's so much I haven't seen. And I absolutely love Greece. It was really like the perfect like place to take a trip with my friends. But we kind of like decided on the spot. But again, my friends are all travelers. We just get excited about going. We are jumping to get that trip out of the group chat. That may not be the case for everybody. So, again, just want to reiterate like, it's probably a good idea to find other friends who like to travel.
Have those similar interests. I know when I did my first trip to Greece, my friend Christina, she was like, we should do a girls' trip to Greece. And then my friend Michelle was like, that would be fun. So we were like, okay, let's figure out. So we had the destination in mind and then we picked the time frame. And at the time, I believe my friend Christina had just started a new job. So she couldn't go during the summer months. We had to wait until after like September. And then my friend Michelle couldn't take vacation in September. So just like logistically, we ended up going towards like, I think it was like the beginning or middle of October when we first took that trip to Greece. So for us, we had the destination and then we just kind of figured out what dates work better for our schedule. And then we kind of went with that. But I know when I plan like my family trips, we usually have the dates. And then from there, we kind of figure out what type of vacation we want to go. And we're a little bit more open in terms of the destinations. Like we have like a running list of places that we want to visit, but then we kind of just like plug them in just based on the time of the year that we're visiting and what we think would be ideal. And then obviously also too, what kind of flight deals we find. So I feel like having a little bit of flexibility, like granted, if you're going in and you're a little bit more strict with the dates that you can travel and you're like dead set on a destination, then that's probably going to be a little bit more recipe for disaster because if your friends are not able to make it, then what does that mean for you? Are you going to be 100% out and no longer interested in going like on a group trip? So I think going in with like an open mind will allow you to make sure that you make it happen too.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's good to have that little bit of flexibility. Like I know for me, even though my job is kind of rigid with the times I can travel, it's not like it's only 2 weeks out of the year. So again, with that trip to Crete, one of my friends had just started a new job. I was kind of thinking of going right after graduation, but because of my one friend's new job, there was kind of like a period period where he couldn't take any vacation. I think it was 6 months in that you were permitted to put vacation time in, and that was later into July. So, I'm, home for the summer. So, of course, I'm like, yeah, let's just like change the dates. It works out very well. That's totally like cool. So, having a little bit of flexibility, if you can swing it, like does help within reason, of course. So, another question that kind of comes up, I know people who want to like plan trips with their friends, there's always like that one friend who seems super excited, but is really non committal at the end of the day. Like, how do you handle that? Like, honestly, I'm kind of a brat and just stop inviting them. But I wanted to know your thoughts. I'm
That's
horrible.
definitely one approach. That's definitely one approach. But I think you need to kind of be a little bit more like committed, right? So, like, I know one year we were going to go celebrate my friend's birthday and we were actually going to New Orleans. And she made it very clear. She was like, hey, if we're going to go, this is by when I need you to make a decision if you're going to come because I'm going to find and book accommodations depending on the group size. So she gave us all like a very like hard deadline. And at that point, I think maybe like one or two people, they ended up backing out because they weren't sure if they were going to make it or not. So I think having that friend in the group that can kind of give you a little bit of like an ultimatum, like, listen, Rachel, you coming or what? Because I'm ready to book this flight. Just kind of, making that commitment and doing it because you always have those friends that they're like, oh, yeah, 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 I'm down. And like I was telling you before, when we were planning the trip to Cuba, it was like 7 or 8 of us. And then it ended up just being like myself and my friend Michelle because everyone was super excited to go. And when it was time to actually make it happen, everyone like flaked. So I think just kind of also too, like not being disappointed if people aren't able to commit, but also not stopping the planning process because you're waiting for someone else.
Yeah, I think you have to be kind of in a place too where you expect that to some degree. I mean, even when we're just like staying at home, plans can always like change and people can like flake the last minute for,
It's like me canceling on our brunch plans because I was hurling over the toilet.
it's different. You were throwing up. Like I felt so bad. And like I said, sometimes, when things are canceled, it's okay because I was like rotting on my sofa reading mafia romances on my Kindle, and it was great because I needed the escapism.
But I never flake out of a trip, so
No, me neither. Me neither. I will make it happen no matter what. But yeah, I think that's what it comes down to. We all need like that alpha friend who just like makes things happen. Like have a friend like me. I just book the ticket and say that I'm booked, and then it kind of shell shocks people, and then they can book or not. Like there's been times my one friend who I was talking about with the trip to Italy, we travel together all the time. She'll just be like, "You booked that ticket already? I guess I better go and book it because I'll just do it. I don't care. I'll look at my credit card balance, be like, doesn't matter. Money will come back. Time to book. United's calling."
gotta rack up those points. But I think it's true though. You need to set boundaries and like not chase after people. Like, listen, if they really want to make it happen, like I said early in the episode, if they are different constraints, then be open about it. Like, again, maybe discuss alternate dates or alternate destinations or alternate budgets. So have those upfront conversations ahead of time. And then that way, if you guys are all on the same page, but you have that one friend, and like we all know that flaky friend within our group, and sometimes we are that flaky friend within our group, which is, totally fine, but don't lead people on. Like, if you know 100% that you're not gonna go, please, can we just drop the maybes and the we'll see? Because, like, we need to book these trips.
Yeah, and like again, like we're all adults here. Like, let's use our words. It's okay, I promise. But you bring up a good point, like talking about like that planning stage, right? And the red flags. So I love a good red flag in the trashy novels I read. I'm all about the red flags there, but not so much in the travel planning process. So you have like the non-committal friend. I guess that could be like a red flag. Are there any other like red flags you should pick up in the group chat and you're like, okay, this trip is probably not gonna launch. I should look at some solo trips ASAP.
When people stop responding, it's funny because like even in my personal life, sometimes I'll tell Michael like, "Oh, I want to do this," and he's like, "Oh, we'll see." As soon as he says "we'll see," I'm like, you know what? Like this is not gonna happen. I either need to like tell him we're gonna go, book the tickets, make it happen, or just go like on my own and find somebody else to go with.
That was my parents growing up. Anytime it was I'll think about it, might as well be a no. I'd be like, that's a lot of words for a no.
Or no. That's what I tell him all the time. I'm like, just say no. Like, if we're not, he's like, no, I didn't say no. I said, we'll see. And I'm like, we'll see does not sound promising. But when you
No.
have that friend that they just completely start ghosting you or not responding to the chat, that's probably an indication that they're not going anywhere. So just give
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, or if
Give
you're
up and
like
move on.
left on red, you open up WhatsApp and you see like the check marks and like no one's responding, or you double and triple text and then there's like no answer. I mean, at that
Well, you know it's bad
point,
when they ghost you on social media and they don't even look at any of the DMs you send.
my God.
Now this friendship is in trouble.
Yeah, that's how you know. But yeah, like I mean, at that point, just read the room a little bit. The answer is going to be a no. I mean, it's good to take the initiative and plan things, but I do think it gets to a certain point where you might as well just book that solo trip. Like, don't be like blowing up someone's phone. Like, if you triple text, the trip's not going to happen. I don't think. Like, that's a red flag.
Exactly. Exactly. And even like before you even make the trip happen, like again, going back to having these open conversations, you don't want someone that's constantly going to be like complaining before they even left or made it to the destination about something. So if they're already complaining about something during like the planning stages, then most likely this is not a trip you want them to join you in.
Do you want to be stuck with that person in another country? Like, think long and hard, my friends. Someone is complaining in a group chat and ghosting you very, very much. Like, do you want to be like stuck in the middle of, I don't know, Spain with that person? No.
Probably
No.
not.
At that point, leave them on the train. Like, if you're going to like Madrid, just jump off the train halfway through at another cool city and just abandon them. I've heard of people doing that if like the group trip's not working out. Just be like, I'll catch you later and just get off at another city. The doors are going to close. They can't catch up to you. It's fine.
Oh my God. I mean, I did leave my friend stranded on a boat in Italy, but she was the best like travel buddy. So that was not on purpose. I think I talked about that during another episode. So love
Yeah.
you, Alex.
Yeah, we've had like our snafus. Like, luckily, the only thing that's ever gotten really lost hasn't been friendships, just my phone. But that's it's living its best life in Crete right now.
Exactly. It's still thriving
Yeah,
under
but
the sea somewhere.
oh my gosh. But yeah, guys, you see those red flags. Like just think long and hard too about who you want to travel with. And again, if you're trying to like get this trip out of the group chat that's like 10 people, like just don't be disappointed when people drop off. Don't be disappointed when plans change. I mean, what you don't want to happen is for you to keep trying to plan these group trips and they don't like materialize and then you start being resentful and angry at your friends. Like before you let that happen, like honestly travel solo. Like it'll be totally fine. I've done so many solo trips and they've been great, but don't let that hold you back from doing something you want to do because eventually resentment starts and that's never a pretty place to be. I can say that from experience. There was like a year in my 20s like nobody wanted to travel with me and I was starting to get pissed and I'd be like so salty every time we would meet up but I wouldn't say anything. And then I started traveling solo and then I was a completely different person. So yeah, just
Exactly. Like you said, we're all in different stages of life. So just because you can't make the trip happen doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with your friendship or your friends. We're in different stages of life. Maybe you can't take time off. Maybe you just started a new job. So like also too, like don't guilt your friends if they can't make it. Don't make it seem like, hey, you're a bad friend because you don't travel with me or you don't do this. Like let's leave all the shaming behind in 2025, please.
yeah. Rosa, you're a bad friend because you won't spend $30,000 to go with me.
Sorry, I gotta fix my roof.
God. Yeah, don't guilt your friends, guys. Just travel solo. Don't guilt your friends. Don't get angry at them. Like if someone's obviously being disrespectful and saying that like the trip you want to take is stupid, then by all means, like put on the boxing gloves and have at it. That's a bad friend. But if it's just like normal like schedule conflicts or maybe like travel just isn't a priority for them, either like find people who share your interests. Like I promise guys, it's still possible to make friends later in life. I think something that holds people back from finding new friends with similar interests is they're worried they won't find those friends. Like trust me, like I joined Wonderful a couple years ago. It's how I met Rosa. And it's a great way to make travel friends, but there's like so many other like groups out there. So if you put yourself out there, you'll make friends, just don't guilt trip people.
Exactly. I mean, I feel like we've kind of been a little bit more like negative Nancy's in this episode. So maybe we'll switch gears a little bit and actually give some good advice.
Negative Nancy every day.
So our listeners can actually make sure that the trip leaves the group chat.
Okay. All right. So, how to make sure the trip leaves the group chat? Be like Rachel and just book the ticket and be like, here's my ticket. Do you want to go? But actually, no, that's actually worked for me though, because sometimes what happens and it's like not a actual planned like group trip, I'll just book a ticket somewhere and my friends will just happen to be free and be like, "Hey, can I join you on that?" And I always say yes. And then they end up being friends trip, like that trip to Italy that I told you about. The trip that I took to Paris, that was supposed to be a solo trip. And my one friend who I met in Japan, she had time and she spent the whole time with me. I had a chance to meet Melissa, who's been on our podcast. So actually, maybe just booking the tickets not a bad idea if you have friends who love travel because they may book and join you. Like
Exactly. They might
that's
have
how, yeah.
FOMO.
FOMO is very powerful, especially now with social media. I talked to my classes about it, and FOMO is something that came up a lot. So maybe just book the ticket and your friends will join you. And that's been really like positive for me and kind of fun because I'm like, okay, like I booked this place and then all these people want to go with me. But again, like I've been like traveling for a while. I've made like connections in the industry. So that of course is a little like bit different. So if someone is planning like a first like French trip, what are some tips for like respectfully approaching your friends and just making sure that happens? Like actual helpful tips, not us just ragging on people.
Think maybe like start small. Like if you have a group of friends and you know it's already kind of difficult for you guys to like let's say just get together for dinner, you're not going to want to plan like a 10-day trip somewhere where you're going to be like off the grid and it requires like a lot of planning and a lot of attention to detail. Maybe just do something a little bit smaller, a little bit more local. Maybe you want to do like a weekend getaway somewhere or like something easy, like an easy destination. Let's say you all off the beach and you decide, okay, let's just take a girls' trip to the Caribbean. So maybe starting small, especially if this is maybe like the first trip that you're planning with your friends. So that way you can kind of dip your toes in a little bit. You can kind of see where everyone's at. And it probably might be a little bit more realistic to make that happen as opposed to logistically trying to plan like a longer, larger trip with your friends.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you're good friends with like a couple people, odds are you'll be able to find one weekend where everyone's free. And odds are everyone will be able to like manage that with work. Like maybe people will have to take one PTO day as opposed to seven. Like that is a big difference. And especially if you live in the US and work in corporate, like you have to really plan out your PTO. So something like a weekend trip could be perfect. And it's still like valid travel and amazing travel. I love traveling in my own backyard. Like I know Rosa and I have gone to New Hope, we've gone to Red Bank, we've gone to Milford, PA, and we love like our local getaways. It's just so nice and it does feel like an escape from the day-to-day grind. So that would be a really good way to plan that group trip. And it's also like beneficial too if it's your first trip traveling with friends and you're not sure how you guys are going to vibe together as a group. At least you're in your home state or a neighboring state or a neighboring city and not across an ocean where like those tensions can be amplified times a million.
Exactly. I feel like when you're more local, you feel a little bit more in control because worst comes to worst, you can always just kind of go back home. Whereas when you're a different destination, maybe you're traveling to a destination where you're taking public transportation, or maybe you don't know the language. There could be additional stressors that can add a little bit more annoyance to the trip. So just make it smaller, more manageable. And I feel like that's a great way to kind of ensure that everyone's a little bit more content and you vibe a little bit better.
Yeah, so I think to sum it up, some good takeaways for this episode would be first trip with friends, keep it local, keep it short, maybe like 3 days, possibly four. Be considerate of people's budgets, like make it realistic. Like that trip to Antarctica may have to like wait a bit, which is totally fine.
2020 30. Wait, 2030.
I need to hit the lottery, but that's a different episode for a different day. I'm not going to
I
complain
need to
about
learn. I need to learn math.
well, me too. Me too. As far as dates go, like have like a general idea. So maybe like June, but then like be flexible, maybe with the week or like something like that. So you're not like totally locked in. And yeah, like those are like good ways to make it happen. Like don't hard launch this insane trip that's going to require 3 weeks and a lot of commitment, especially if you've never traveled together before. And probably the last good takeaway that we could throw out there is just don't get like angry at your friends if like these trips never make it out of the group chat. Like I know it can be disappointing. Like I understand maybe if you already like booked your tickets and people started bailing, like if a friend cancels last minute, in that case my advice is always to travel solo. But like otherwise, like don't be disappointed. Try to do what you want anyway and keep it small to start.
Yeah, I agree. And that's a good point. I think when we were having our episode with Jen, she brought up a good point that when you are planning a trip with friends, now granted, money constraints can make it a little bit more difficult, but if you're still able to swing it, just make it happen. I know during our recent trip to Copenhagen, it was supposed to be four of us. And then one of the girls, last minute, she wasn't able to join anymore. So then it went down to three. So obviously, we're now splitting the accommodations between three people versus four, which it was a little bit more, but it was still manageable. But I can only imagine if it would have been from four and now one person had to travel solo, having to take on all of the expenses of pre booking things. So also to be considerate. And again, just kind of like sounding like a broken record, know from the get go. Now, granted, things happen, emergencies happen, factoring in all of those things. But from the very, very beginning, be realistic if you can actually make the trip happen. Because when you start bailing, especially last minute, and people are planning the logistics, it takes a lot of time and effort. And now let's say you're budgeting X amount of money because you're splitting it between, four people. And now there's only going to be like two people going. That's a big difference. So be realistic from the get go so that way when people are planning things, they're not last minute now being stranded, having to find like alternate accommodations or from a budget perspective, that now is going to become a little bit more expensive. So you don't want to kind of throw that burden onto your friends either.
Mhm.
Take that into consideration.
Yeah, definitely. And on the flip side, like we kind of had this happen with Crete. We had someone join us last minute. And it was fine because we had booked like separate rooms and whatnot. And at least with that, like it made it easy with like dinner reservations. Cause if you're reserving for three people, like the restaurant, like you're going to be seated at a table for four anyway. But the person who joined was really like flexible and laid back because the one experience we had booked, it was only a max of three people who could join, and he was perfectly fine with just spending the day like on his own, like relaxing, doing his own thing. So I know we said previously like it's good to have like one friend who kind of gets things done, but also like it's good if you have people too who can go with the flow, because you never know, you may have someone want to join last minute and that could be really really cool and like be open to that. But just like remember there's a lot that goes into planning an itinerary too.
Yeah. And have an opinion. Like, yes, being easygoing is great and all. And like, I know I like planning trips, I like figuring out the logistics. However, sometimes I travel with certain friends where they also like to plan. And I just kind of let them do their thing. But also, I am going to contribute, like whether it's things that I want to see or specific restaurants that I want to eat in. So, at least having somewhat of an opinion and some suggestions. So that way, when you do go to the trip and when you are at the destination, you don't find yourself kind of like, I'm not going to say like left out, but a little disappointed that you're not doing all the things that you normally would want to do. So if you don't give any suggestions and don't have an opinion, your friends are also not mind readers. So just kind of making sure that you have somewhat of an input as well.
Yeah, definitely. Because I do think if you're collaborating and everybody's putting in an equal effort in the group chat, it's more likely that the trip is going to happen. Like, I mean, think about any other aspect of life. Is someone showing like interest in the conversation? You're not bored, you're not saying whatever. Like, it's a sign that you're interested, right? So, if everyone's collaborating and giving an opinion, like, I consider that a green flag. Like, we talked about red flags already. A green flag in the group chat is everybody contributing equally, giving ideas. Now, of course, people may have different interests and activities, but if you're like flexible friends, I mean, there's nothing wrong with maybe spending an afternoon apart if that's the case. So it's just like really comes down to finding your people.
Exactly. Or, like you said before, going by yourself.
Yeah, go by yourself.
However, this episode is about group trips. So, overall, you can make it happen just with a little bit of planning and I think open communication. And just if no one else is taking charge, how about you just take charge? If no one else is making decisions or figuring out locations or times, then you be the one. You really want this trip to happen? Then go ahead, be the outspoken one. Doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be the one planning everything, but at least kind of getting the ball rolling because I feel like someone has to kind of speak out in order to kind of make it happen. Otherwise, if everyone is so like easygoing and like laid back, then this is never going to happen. The trips are not going to
Exactly.
plan themselves, people.
No, I wish they did because it is a lot of work. But yeah,
I
like
mean, I wish they paid for themselves because then I can travel more. I can go with you to Antarctica.
My gosh, there's honestly, I'm too scared to go to Antarctica. Like, I don't know if I could do that boat ride. Maybe if I was unconscious the whole
Yeah,
time.
no, the Drake Passage. I've seen videos and I'm
I've seen
like, I would love
videos.
to, but I don't know. I might have to be drugged.
Yeah, well, I would have to like teleport there because, like, apparently I can't even handle an airplane ride without being drugged. So, on
Like on that
that
note,
note, before I start going crazy, so
it's almost
yeah,
9 o'clock. We're gonna get wild, so we'll spare our listeners.
yeah, we'll wrap this up. So, do you want to do a quick rapid fire round before we hang
Let's
up?
do it. So,
All
would you
right.
rather plan the entire trip yourself or deal with a group chat that never responds?
I just plan the entire trip myself and go. I'm being ghosted.
Same.
I'm out of here. Like if I send multiple texts, I don't care. I'll plan the whole thing myself.
Exactly. Once I send the little emoji with like going like this, that's it. I'm done. I'm exiting the group chat. I'm going
Yes.
by myself.
Send like an angry like gif their way. Would you rather take a shorter trip that actually happens or a dream trip that never gets booked? I
I
mean,
feel like we kind of already answered that. I'd rather do something small and local with my friends than just talk about something and it never happens.
yeah, right? Like I'm totally fine taking smaller trips and then like bigger trips myself. So that like totally like works. So what's the next one here? Gosh, would you rather call out a flaky friend or silently remove them from the next group chat? I'm passive
Ooh.
aggressive, so I know what I do, but I'm kind of horrible. So
I mean, I think I would kind of call them out, and that's actually happened to us. So, like, we had one of our friends, every time we would plan something, every time, like clockwork, something would always happen. She would always like bail and cancel last minute. So, one time we were going somewhere, and my friends and I, we went on this event. And then she's like messaging us and she's like, "Hey, where was my invite?" And we're like, "Why? You never go anywhere." So then after that, anytime we did plan something, she showed up. So we did kind of call her out. I mean, so it was kind of messed up, but she got the point. She got it together.
I see nothing wrong with it. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do, and then they'll be like, oh my gosh, this person's serious. But yeah, with the silently removing from the group chat, it's sort of the thing I would do. I mean, I have so many people muted on social media at this point.
Like,
I think my block list is 300 people long.
I need to find your address. So if you start blocking me on socials, I can find you.
Okay. Oh my gosh. So if I ever did that and you showed up at my apartment, you're getting
That
another
is like
chance.
next level stalker.
No, that is dedication. I block you on social media and you're just like, oh my gosh, hell no. My co host is not leaving me. And you show up at my apartment, you're getting another chance.
Either that or I'm going to get arrested. I don't know. All right. On that note, would you rather be I can't even talk, the trip leader or the friend who just shows up with the snacks?
Oh my gosh. So I always end up, I feel like, in the trip leader role, unless it's my mom. And then, like, I make her do it because she's my mom. But I feel like just by the nature of being like a travel content creator, I'm the trip leader. But I would love to just be the one bringing the snacks.
Same. I mean, depending on the trip, I can be either one. Usually, if I'm traveling with like Michael and Samantha, I am the leader and I'm also packing the snacks. I never
Yeah.
leave home without my emergency snacks.
Which one are we when we travel together?
I think we can be both.
I do too. Like, I feel like it's very similar. So, I guess any last minute advice before we close out?
I guess the biggest takeaway from the episode, if you really, really want to make this trip happen and you have a group of friends, maybe they're a little bit indecisive, then be the one to take charge and make it happen. Put it out there to your friends. Be a little bit more forthcoming, like, hey, these are some possible destinations. These are some possible days. Who can join? And whoever can join, perfect. Whoever can, maybe for the next one. And if no one can join, then go by yourself. Let
I love it.
2026 be that year that you just make it happen with friends or solo. And if you need a travel buddy, hit me and Rachel up.
Yeah, yeah, I'm always ready to travel. Whether I have the money or not doesn't matter. I'm always ready to travel. It's fine.
I promise I won't flake.
She won't flake. I mean, this woman will show up at my apartment if I block her, so she will not flake.
I might have to edit that out for legal reasons. And on
Picture
that
you
note,
knocking on the window. You blocked me on Instagram. Let me in. You would get another chance. I'd be like, that's dedication. I'm reading too many bad novels. I gotta stop.
oh my God. And on that note, that is a wrap on today's episode of Bon Voyage Besties. So we hope that this conversation felt a little too familiar for you. Those never ending group chats that we should totally do this text and the trips that somehow never get booked. We hope you're walking away feeling empowered to finally make it happen. So whether it's a girls trip, a besties getaway, or even just one weekend away that actually makes it on the calendar, you don't need perfect alignment, just one solid decision and a book flight. So we hope you loved today's episode. So make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you listen to this podcast and make sure to share with your friends who's always down for an adventure. So thank you again for tuning in. And as always, catch you on the next episode.
Bon voyage, besties. Get the trip out of the group chat.
Adios.
Bye-bye.
Book those flights.
Yes.